Joining us now on the phone is the editor and publisher of The Nation magazine from New York, Katrina Vanden. Heuvel. Katrina, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Katrina, by the way, I always like to mention I've interviewed her a couple of times now, but the last time we went to the same high school, though at different times. So I'm a proud graduate of the very same high school.
Hey, I gave the commencement address this past year. That was a tough one. I know. Wow. I should have called and emailed and Twittered all of our former colleagues.
That's right. How was it? Do they still do it
I
down
survived.
at the church on Wall Street?
Trinity, beautiful Trinity Church.
Beautiful.
No, it was at 96th Street on the west side.
Oh, really?
I survived.
When I graduated, they did it at Trinity Church.
And when I did too, but you know, we're talking many years ago, I think.
Yeah, right. But the church, I still think, is still there. In any case, we didn't come here to cut up old touches about Trinity, but we did bring you on the show to talk a bit about these Blue Dog Democrats and you know what they have done to sort of derail the health care legislation that the president put to the Congress. Explain to us a little bit, give us a little bit of 101 about the Blue Dogs, and then just sort of, you know, the idea of what a centrist is. Well,
I mean, the Blue Dogs have this mission and mantra about fiscal discipline. And by the way, the Blue Dogs, most of them tend to come from states or districts that aren't heavily Democratic.
Right.
And in fact, one of their founders, as Paul Krugman wrote in a good column I recommend to your listeners, I think it was called An Incoherent Truth, the other day, explained, you know, one of their main founders then went Republican. I like to call them blue dog elephants these days. Yeah. But so they, you know, the problem is essentially they're voting for their seats rather than for their issues, the issues that Democrats have elected people to defend and protect and advance. And in this case, we're talking health care. And, you know, my view, I may be naive, politicians are elected to help improve people's lives, and I think these Blue Dogs who view themselves as, quote, centrists at a time when they're really far out of the field. When you look at the Democratic Party, I think it's moved in important ways, and the demographic changes in this country are going to move that Democratic Party even more to the progressive left side of the aisle. But I think when I look at the term centrist and think of politicians who are afraid to take positions on issues that might cause them heartburn with swing voters, they're thinking about their reelection more than issues. My final thought is Jacob Hacker, who's been very good on arguments in support of the public option, which is critical to any real meaningful health care reform.
Right.
There was a story in the Washington Post magazine a few months ago about a place in Wise, Virginia, where thousands of people come at the end of every month or maybe at the end of every year. These are uninsured people who have just the worst health care conditions, and a team of doctors comes in to see them once a year, I think it is. Now, they come from districts represented by these so-called Blue Dogs, but these Blue Dogs aren't really caring for those people. They're protecting their seats, and, you know, you got the influence of money, which can't be discounted.
Right. You know, and going back a little bit to what you were saying about the idea of how, you know, that they come from, the idea of a centrist, I guess, is what I'm getting at. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah.
Without Olympia Snowe and Susan Collins and a handful of other, you know, I'm not going to give Lindsey Graham that nod even close.
Right.
But let's just talk about the two senators from Maine. They're viewed as centrists as well. The Republicans call them rhinos, Republican in name only.
Right.
But are we not aided by the presence of, you know, maybe it's the wrong word. Maybe the word derives from the fact that it's the right side of the aisle, the left side of the aisle, and the center. And it's not about centrist thinking as much as it is the actual physical makeup of the bodies of Congress, the physical plant there. Are we not helped by those kinds of people in Congress? I know this legislation isn't, and I know that they're a thorn in the side to Democrats very often, much more so than Republicans, because they seem to.
Yeah, they are.
Them. Yeah,
they are. I mean, first of all, the Republican Party is reduced to maybe 2.5 moderate Republicans. I mean, listen, I am for 2, 3, 4, 5 robust political parties.
Right.
At the moment, you got a Republican Party which in the Congress is really very right-wing.
Yeah, well, no,
You
no
know, I
question.
mean, so you do have like two people from Maine and then a half person from another state, and it's very tough to do what you might have been able to do 10, 15, 30, 40, 50 years ago when some of the great legislation of our country, which improved the condition of people's lives, I'm talking Social Security or Medicare, those squeaked by too, but you did have more Republican support.
Right.
So the Republicans have moved. And the Democratic Party, it's true that, you know, it's made up of many regional parts, but there are some core issues which have led to this moment where you have a majority in the Senate, a majority in the House, and a Democratic president. And it seems to me if we blow this moment, it's going to be very tough for Democrats to stand up and explain what they're about, who they're for. And the larger point is it seems to me a defining moment for the country. I mean, if we, and we're one of the few, if not the only, Western industrialized advanced nations, can't pass meaningful health care reform, giving some chance of affordable, real access to people, you have to wonder about the system.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm only because it's provocative. If I just sat here and agreed with you the whole way,
no, listen.
And there's one other side to that story. You know, putting the politics aside, a congressman. Let's take Mike Ross, the Democrat from Arkansas, who is a blue dog. And by the way, Gary Condit was also a famous blue dog.
That's right. Oh boy, yeah.
That was when I first sort of heard that,
the term.
Well, I mean, with
you
such regularity.
What blue dog meant,
exactly,
right?
exactly. Now I know. Yeah. Which is right. He was always blue dog Democrat Gary Condit, Congressman, embattled blue dog Democrat Gary Condit.
But let me, if I could just jump in for a moment.
Yeah.
Part of what we're seeing is both. It's the Pyrrhic nature of success, and a success, by the way, led in many ways by Rahm Emanuel, who is now deep in the White House, because in order to enlarge the Democratic Party, the House brought in quite a few Democrats, like Heath Shuler from a tough district in North Carolina, or a very interesting guy named Tom Perriello from Virginia, who won against this odious Republican named Virgil Good, straight out of William Faulkner.
By the way, you're mispronouncing. It's Virgil Good is how he pronounces it. Yes, and he announced yesterday that he's not running for that seat again. So it's great for Perriello, by the way.
Well, Faulkner would have liked that even better.
Yeah,
Good.
Good he would have liked.
But so you have to have some sympathy, or a word that's now dangerous to use, empathy for these people. But on the other hand, it does raise the question about the state of the Democratic Party, or the state of our parties in general, because they become these umbrella coalitions.
Yeah.
And I keep going on, it's not very sexy, but at some point we need to think harder about electoral reform and how you really do represent this country. I believe is fundamentally on core issues center-left or center-progressive. But our politics isn't representing that, even with now a majority in House, Senate, and you got the presidency.
Yeah, we're talking with Katrina Vanden, Heuvel, the editor and publisher of The Nation. I think that that's really true. I mean, that's something you've hit on that everybody can kind of embrace, is that even with this imbalance in the House right now, it doesn't feel that way. And I think a lot of Democrats were hoping that it would. The difference is that when Democrats get control, the Democrats have a bigger tent, a bigger umbrella that you were talking about, so that you have a Heath Shuler in North Carolina, and then you have you have Brian Braley in Iowa. I mean, you just have different Bruce Braley. You have different people that are making up your constituents, whereas Republicans tend to march lockstep with one another, and that's a deficit we're always going to have.
That's right.
And there are pro-life Democrats, but there aren't too many pro-choice Republicans.
No, it's true. So how but on the other hand, there are some core fundamental issues, and one of them is health care. I mean, it's and I think that if the Democrat, and by the way, we're not even talking single payer. I get a lot of angry emails because I do TV and radio, and part of you want to flip the question and bring up single payer, but at the moment we're engaged in fighting for a public plan. And people say, how come you're not fighting for single payer? I mean, I do think a public plan is what we have to fight for on the road to single payer. But it's, this is not a radical proposal. This is about choice. If there was more clearer messaging from the White House, and here, I want to urge your listeners to go to our website, thenation.com, and read our D.C. editor, Chris Hayes' terrific piece just posted this afternoon on Obama and healthcare. Clearer messaging. There is a moral and economic framework that has been lost. And you can't blame Obama because he's, working within this paradigm of 30 years of conservative dogma. And he's trying to use the language of fiscal conservatism to pull off a marginally progressive shift in the social contract. And how the fact that it's so tough suggests how successful the bind of this 30-year conservative dogma has been. One would have thought that the economic crisis, the failed neoliberal market fundamentalism would have opened up opportunities, but they're closing down fairly quickly, and I think it's going to take citizens to kind of say, hey, wait a minute. And you got public support. You know this. I mean, what is it, 72% support for a public plan?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't work with that.
Right.
You got to ask, what can you work with?
I know, and that's true. And I think that some of the blame does fall back on the White House. I mean, an administration that got to the White House on a fantastic slogan of "Yes, we can."
Yeah.
There has not been one slogan or one unified message to come out of this White House in 6 months. There's no catchphrase. There's no message that's unified. And I find a lot of that silly, but America doesn't. And I think in order to communicate these things, I mean, as far back as with inflation now, to yes we can, to compassionate to conservatism, the whole idea of the success of those little turn of phrases are that they stick with people and people understand them. They condense
absolutely
a message. And so I totally agree, and I'm interested in reading Chris Hayes' article.
I mean, he makes the right point as well, which we have to be honest in admitting, that a majority of people think their health insurance is just fine. I mean, that's we're not and they're the ones who are probably more active in the system than the people who are shafted, 50 million or so, who are not insured.
Right.
But that hasn't been taken on effectively.
And that shouldn't be the issue. I mean, most people could ride a bus anywhere in Alabama. Black people couldn't. So, I mean, I just sort of think that you have to for a moment be taught that there needs to be a way of thinking selflessly. I mean, I'm not speaking idealistically either, but we just have to sort of make that part of this message here. So yes, your health care plan may be fantastic. However, most of them aren't, and we shouldn't live in a society where they are, where people are like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the other thing which is so interesting is how fiscal discipline, we were talking earlier about language, and how so much of the media, and let's not, forget the media's role in portraying these blue dogs as moderates, as centrists, and in doing so, marginalizing or beginning to people who are not in sync with the moderates.
That's a big part of it, isn't it? There's the marginalization of those people.
Marginalization.
Yeah.
But think of the term fiscal discipline. If fiscal discipline meant that politicians support tax increases on the fabulously wealthy, which is what we're talking about, or cuts to a bloated military budget to pay for programs that would make our country more secure, more competitive, all of those good code words, that would be a nice, interesting approach. But fiscal discipline essentially means what it's meant for 30 or 40 years. And again, I'm not letting Democrats off the hook. There has been an abetting of this problem because of a failure to educate people about how you do need to spend in times like these, and how the biggest deficit is the public investment deficit. It sounds wonky and unsexy, but it's true.
Certainly, it makes a lot of sense, and it's a real truth. It's thenation.com. Its editor and publisher, Katrina, Vanden, Heuvel, was kind enough to join us today. Please come back. Of course, we could talk about this all the time, but please come back and visit
Thank you
us
very
on the
much.
Thank you, Katrina.
If you like this little clip, you'll love the whole show. It loops 24/7 on theyoungturks.com. Go and check it out right now.